Right now, I'm doing it right back into our top stories on this Saturday as the hearing for the man accused of assassinating the UnitedHealthcare CEO 1 year ago in Midtown Manhattan is scheduled to enter week 2 on Monday, possibly lasting through the end of that week. Day 4 of the hearings for Luigi Mangione was supposed to take place Friday, but Mangione essentially called out sick, so to speak, and did not attend, so the judge postponed Day 4 until Monday. Again, you're looking at some of the video that we've received there over the last year. I do want to bring in Sam Bassett, criminal defense attorney, to talk much more about all of this here. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to start by asking you here about the whole sick situation. Is that normal for a judge to cancel a hearing because a suspect is sick? Could they have continued without him?
It's the practice, I think, in New York and most states for when there's testimony in a case, when there's witness testimony, you really would like the defendant to be present. It's not constitutionally required, but I know of very few judges, unless the defendant is really misbehaving in court and they're caused to be excluded, or unless they voluntarily say they're not going to attend, to not go forward with a hearing where there's witness testimony.
And Day 4 expected to kick off there on Monday. They started last Monday. Can you kind of, going in reverse here, explain exactly what these hearings are and what they're set to accomplish?
Well, these are hearings based on motions filed by the defense to exclude certain evidence. The big chunks at this hearing are statements made by Mangione when he was encountered by the police, but just prior to his arrest at the McDonald's. The other big chunk of evidence that's at play here is the backpack he was carrying and the contents of that backpack, which included the weapon used to kill the gentleman, and also some writings and other corroborative evidence of Mr. Mangione's plan.
What has stood out to you overall about what we've learned over the first 3 days of the hearing?
Well, I think you see Mangione actively participating in his defense. He's obviously very bright and insightful. I think as far as the testimony, nothing real surprising. They read him his rights fairly quickly. They detained him, and I think their position, the state's position, is going to be that they arrested him fairly quickly after he gave the fake ID. So that will probably justify the search of the backpack. But the defense is using this hearing. Obviously, a home run for the defense would be to exclude some of his statements or exclude the contents of the backpack. But another purpose is for the defense to flesh out testimony in detail of police officers and others under oath so that they know what to expect at trial.
Given the nature of the case, the presence of supporters actually lining up outside to get into the hearing, could seating an impartial jury be a little bit more challenging if there is a trial held here?
There's no doubt that the publicity of this case and a prospective juror's knowledge of the case will be an issue during jury selection. Typically, judges and courts can handle this by calling a larger than usual panel. Sometimes they call as many as 200 or 300 people to get 12 jurors. So obviously a very initial screening question will be, have you heard about this case? That doesn't disqualify if you've heard about the case. And you also have to have an opinion about the case based on what you've heard. So that's going to take a lot of time, yes.
What do we need to be watching for here as the hearing does continue? Again, not quite clear if Mangione is healthy enough to be there on Monday for Day 4 or if they're going to postpone it again. But what do we need to be watching for next week in the hearing?
I think just the specific testimony of the officers about what Mangione said, some of that's already come out. But obviously, I'm interested in the judge's rulings. Is he going to exclude any of the evidence? Obviously, excluding the contents of the backpack would be huge for the defense, but I'd be very surprised if that happens.
My last question here, your thoughts, and I love to talk to folks about this because obviously, you know, I'm a reporter at heart, so I know that we do prefer cameras in the courtroom because we're able to show how everything plays out. But from a legal perspective, do you believe that there should be cameras allowed inside of the courtroom here as all of this plays out? And does that make any difference?
Generally speaking, a nondescript camera in a courtroom doesn't affect things greatly, in my opinion. However, the judges and the prosecutors and the lawyers that I've been in front of when there's a camera in the courtroom do behave differently. They're more rigid, they're more firm in their stances, they're aware that the public is watching. So there's a real debate here. I kind of side with allowing cameras in the courtroom if it can be done discreetly. And if a witness that's going to testify can say, I don't want to be put on camera, that is honored by some courts, and I appreciate that type of restriction on the coverage of a camera in a courtroom. However, I do think it's important for the public to see the proceedings, at least in part, to have an understanding of due process as it occurs.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Sam Bassett, for being here with us and helping to discuss this. Anything else that you want to add? Anything we missed here before I let you go?
Obviously, a big case, and a lot of eyes will be on it. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right. Thank you again for being here. We definitely appreciate it.